What I found on my self-development journey, which I have been on for 15 years by this point, is that there comes to a point where you can no longer keep adding all of these techniques and principles and laws and rules. You can't keep adding. There gets to a point where you realize that although all of these things can be useful in their own right, whether they're useful or not to you as an individual and your individual circumstances is something to question. And before long, you'll realise that there are only so many techniques and principles and things that apply to you. And the more nuanced those principles become, the harder they are to implement and the more unique they are to each individual. But there are always a set of core principles. And you'll get to a certain point in your self-development journey where you will realise that you need to stop adding and you need to start taking away. And a lot of your journey will then be about not learning new things, not adding, but about reminding yourself about things that you already know. And I think I'm kind of at that phase now. I've spent so much time adding techniques, things to make me more efficient, productive, to make me feel better, to improve different areas of my life, to make me more time efficient, to maximize my income, to save better, to look after my money, to look after all sorts of things. And I'm at a point now where I have to I have a hell of a lot of information that I couldn't possibly action. And so I need to sift through it all and work out which pieces of information provide the highest leverage. And you may be in exactly the same spot. Information in this day and age is not an issue. We have access to all the information we need. What we need instead is some kind of filter. And that filter could be a particular book. It could be a YouTuber like me. Maybe you like the way that I see the world and you like the filter that I see the world through, and a lot of what I say resonates with you. You might get the same with the infinite amount of YouTubers that are available out there. You might get the same from a podcast or from a friend or a family member. But you will get to a point in your self-development journey where you need some kind of filter. And recently, one massive principle that I guess I'd taken for granted because it seems so obvious. It seems so obvious that that it's easy to neglect, and that is my health, and in particular, because health can obviously have different elements to it. Exercise. And if I look back on all areas of my life, if I look back on all the times in my life where I felt best, where I felt like I am motivated, where I'm productive, where I'm feeling good about life, where I'm feeling present, where I'm feeling calm, then it is almost guaranteed, there is probably a 90 to 99% chance that during that time of my life, I was also regularly exercising. And I have a theory for this, and I guess it comes from a more holistic point of view. But something that I've suffered with for a long time in my life is a sense of anxiety. I've always had a big view on the world. I don't like small picture thinking. I've always been a big picture thinker. I always have big dreams, and I always think in terms of big, and sometimes I neglect the details because of that, but that's a whole nother story. But the result of that is that the world seems like such a large place and my part in it seems so small that I get this sense of anxiety that I can't possibly do all the things in my life that I would like to do. And by far, one of the most effective remedies for anxiety has been regular exercise. Like, beyond anything else, regular exercise has been the remedy for anxiety. And that is not to say that it completely cures it, but it makes it so much more manageable. And so there's a couple of reasons for this, but my holistic point of view, and probably spent too much time meditating in India, is that I'm naturally quite a energetic person, and it may not come across that way in my videos. I have been described as quite stoic, as quite calm, as quite collected. But when I get inspired by something, when I feel motivated, when I want to get something done, I have an almost limitless amount of energy to get that thing done. But of course, if this energy is misplaced, then it can turn into anxiety. And it's, I guess, like the way Eastern medicine would address the problem. It's like there's this energy circulating in my body. And if I don't have a healthy way to direct it, it ends up going into my head, into my brain. And then all that energy just is bouncing around my skull, I guess, and causes this anxiety because there is no channel for that energy. And so what I have found over the years is that energy, it's not burned off by exercise, it is directed by exercise. Because I don't know whether you have any experience of regularly exercising. Maybe you're an ultramarathon runner, maybe you're a overweight person that hasn't got off the couch for many years. I'm not casting any judgments, but if you have some experience of regular exercise, you'll know that you can, when you exercise, that you would think like you are a battery, like an energizer, the energy bunny or whatever it is. That if you were to exercise, that may take out 30-40% of your exercise, of your energy, depending on the level of exercise that you're doing and the output. But the irony is, I have found that provided that you are doing exercise that is in line with your current fitness levels, i.e. is a challenge, but is not too much of a challenge, you don't push yourself over, that actually what exercise does is increases your energy. So if you're at 100%, it's almost like it enlarges the battery, it enlarges the capacity for your energy. But more than that, rather than that huge amount of energy you've just created going into your brain and bouncing around, it directs it and it allows you to think clearer. And then when you can think clearer, you can make a decision about what direction you want to take. And then the energy that you've manifested, you can direct into that thing. And this, I always knew that exercise was good for me. I just knew it intuitively. But it's only recently that I've really been considering why it is useful and how it actually helps me. And this is where I've landed, that you have this, we all have this certain amount of energy, but if we don't have a clear and healthy direction in which to put it, it will just manifest itself in other ways in our body. It will bounce around as anxiety. And I think at some points in my life, the anxiety has been so overwhelming that I don't know if there's like some kind of protection mechanism in your brain or in your body, but it switches off and you disconnect and you go into something called anhedonia, I think it is, something along those lines, where you don't really feel anything. You don't feel happy, you don't feel sad, you're just a kind of numb. And I believe that is a direction, your body's way of, it's like a fail-safe switch. You've got so much energy that has been directed into your brain and pushed around as anxiety, and you've had no way of knowing what to do with that. and your brain switches off. It stops you from feeling that anxiety because it is so overwhelming, and we know very well by this point how stress can make you ill. So your brain would rather switch that off and switch off the stress rather than have you move towards, or rather than have you feel this level of anxiety. And of course, in an ideal world, if you were feeling good, you would direct this energy and your brain would be grateful for it. It would feel no need to switch off, and you could direct this energy into something useful. But it doesn't always go that way. And so that's my theory, is that, and I guess it's also the same with, like, although I don't have a medical degree, I'm not a doctor, but I have had experience with medication to deal with anxiety. And I guess it is almost like a forced chemical version of that switch that I'm talking about. It does switch off your anxiety, but it puts you into that state of like anhedonia, of like not feeling good, not feeling bad. It kind of makes you feel a little bit numb. And I guess it is like a chemical version of something that your body does naturally by switching off. So I'm reminded of that today, and the reason I wanted to make this video is because it is the first time for a while that I've been for a run. And I talked earlier about kind of the level of exercise, and I think that's another important topic to cover. Like, how much is enough exercise for us? When I'm in my peak, there are two types of exercise that I like to engage in, and the first is steady state cardio. I like to go for a run, and I like to go for a run because I feel like that kind of steady beat of your feet hitting the ground and of being out in nature gives me space to just think and to allow myself to just think without all the distractions around. If I'm sat in my flat, there are so many things that I can distract myself with that I quite often don't just sit down and think. And so you don't really need to think about running. It's something that you can put into your subconscious knows how to do. It's the same as breathing, digesting your food. You just run. And because there is nothing else for you to do but think, that space is vital for me I have so many ideas bouncing around in my head that to sift through which ones I find are going to be useful and which ones aren't helpful or damaging in some cases. So to help me to direct that energy, I find that any kind of like steady state cardio is great for that. And you might be thinking, well, shit, I don't like running. Well, that's fine. You don't have to do running. It could be swimming for you. It could be, I don't know, football. A lot of people in the UK into football, or soccer for my American watchers. It could be tennis, rugby, frisbee, badminton. Sports aren't my strong point, but any kind of sport that gets you moving in a kind of steady pace is useful. Excuse me, I think I've got hay fever. My throat's a bit bunged up at the moment. So that's the first thing, is that kind of steady state cardio. And the second thing that I find is what gives me that fire and the drive to actually accomplish the tasks that I've set for myself is resistance training. And that is going down the gym and lifting weights. And I know a lot of people do not like the idea of going to a gym and lifting weights. But I have spent a lot of time digesting self-development content, and I'm talking probably hundreds of books, thousands of hours of podcasts and YouTube videos, and really dissecting the success from people. And the one very common denominator in all of those people is that they have some kind of resistance training built into their schedule. And I don't know what the direct mechanism for this is, but I think, especially for a lot of guys, but maybe girls too, we feel this frustration because life doesn't always play out the way we want it to, and anger naturally builds. And I think what a lot of us do is try and suppress this anger. And that anger is useful, but we are taught over the years that it is not a useful emotion, that we should try and suppress it, that we shouldn't show this level of anger. But going down the gym and lifting heavy shit allows you to let out that anger. It allows you to push against something. And I think that is what the emotion of anger tries to do. It sees an injustice, it sees something that it doesn't like, and it wants you to push against it in life. And I guess, again, from like an Eastern medicine philosophy point of view, pushing against something heavy is a kind of metaphor for that. And maybe it helps. I can only speak from my own experience, but lifting weights has been really helpful, and I haven't really had the time to do that, but I know that that's a bullshit excuse, because I could find time to do it, and I will be doing that. And like I said at the beginning of this video, this whole self-development journey is about reminding myself the truths that I already know. And I never come across in these videos and say to you that I have all the answers. I'm taking you on this journey as I go along. But for some of you, I may be a few steps further ahead, and you may find that what I say to be useful, and you may see the world in the same way I do, and therefore the things that work for me probably are going to work for you too, or at the very least are worth trying. So going back to exercise, there's this combination of this steady state cardio, which helps you to kind of concentrate your thoughts, and then there's this resistance training, which helps you, it gives you an outlet for all the frustrations and anger that come up, but also just makes you feel good about yourself as well. There is something about when you regularly go into the gym and then you can put on a t-shirt and your shoulders feel big, and you know that your posture's good, you just feel better, you feel more confident, and you are perceived, whether it's right or wrong, you are perceived by other people in a much better light if you look after yourself. And there's a whole nother tangent there about cheating and the whole rise of Ozempic and steroids, but I'll go into it quickly because I think it's worth discussing. When you see someone that looks after themselves, or previously, before these chemical alternatives existed, if you saw someone that is fit and healthy, it is safe to make an assumption about the type of person that is, because it is not easy to get fit and healthy, and it isn't always easy to maintain that level of fitness and health, and particularly as time goes on and we have access to more convenient and faster and more processed foods, it is harder, and we have to work longer hours, and our money goes less further than it used to. It is harder to look after yourself. And so if you see someone that is in good shape, that looks after themselves, it is fair to say that that person is confident, that they prioritize themselves, that they are disciplined, that they believe in themselves, and that they are prepared to do difficult things, sacrifice in the moment for a longer term gain. And really, those are the type of people that you want in your life, people that are disciplined, people that aren't lazy. Because if people aren't lazy with certain areas of their life, they're probably not lazy with all areas of their life. But the problem with drugs like Ozempic and steroids, and again, I'm not casting aspersions if you're on them, I'm not saying whether it's right or wrong, there may be some very good reasons why you're on them. But what I am saying is that it is now difficult for people to make that same judgment, or at least there is a questioning in their judgment. This person looks fit and healthy to me, but did they get there through hard work and exercise, or did they take a drug to help them get there? And because if they took a shortcut, then I can't trust that they're not lazy people. They might not be, but I can't trust that they're not. So that's my view on Ozempic and steroids. But yeah, I went off on a massive tangent there. But my point being is that one of these kind of cornerstone foundational habits is exercise. And if you are trying to implement certain nuance techniques into your self-development routine, things like, I don't know, like eating specific foods or vitamin and supplement stacks at specific times in the day, or using like a daylight lamp therapy first thing in the morning, whatever it is, like if you're trying to do stuff like that and you're not exercising, then you are trying to run before you can walk. And I want to tell you that in this journey of self-development, there are absolutely no shortcuts. You have to build a foundation before you can build this tower on top. It's like you want your life to be this skyscraper, and you want, or a palace, or whatever it is, like some kind of metaphor for a type of life that you want. But instead of first focusing on the foundations, to build strong foundations out of concrete and steel, you build the whole thing on sand. And then you wonder why it collapses when something goes wrong. This is exactly why it is so important to build that foundation. And for me, one of those absolute foundation cornerstone habits is to exercise regularly. And that's where I was going with this. I feel like I digressed a little bit, but what is enough exercise? Well, that is going to be dependent on your current level of fitness, basically. The exercise that you do needs to be a challenge. I think it's great going for a walk, don't get me wrong, that's a kind of steady state of activity. But unless that walk gets your heart rate going and gets you like sweating a little bit, then I would say that you are not exercising hard enough. And again, the guy that runs ultra marathons is not going to struggle with a 10-minute walk. The guy that has spent a year working from home, sitting on his couch all day, not going out, not doing any exercise, eating junk food, that 10-minute walk may be a massive struggle for him, and that may get his heart racing and it may get him sweating. And so the exercise that you choose to do has to be relevant, or has to be relative, I should say, to your current level of fitness. But whatever it is that you're doing, it needs to be a challenge, but not too much of a challenge. So if it gets your heart rate going, if it gets you sweating a little bit, that's perfect, especially for steady state cardio. And the reason why I love lifting weights so much is because it is so easy to track and to get metrics. You can start by lifting a very small amount of weights, like a very low weight. And the great thing is that every week that you go, you will get stronger, provided that you're doing the other two cornerstone habits, but I'll cover them in another video. But provided that you are being consistent with your efforts and looking after yourself in the other areas, then you will find that the amount of weight that you can lift goes up. And of course, when you see this progress, it makes you feel better, and that inspires you to then go to the gym more. And that is how this healthy habit is built. So you might be thinking, Jay, I really don't want to go down the gym. Very few people want to go down the gym when they first start. Believe me, there are very few people that have never been set foot inside a gym before that actually actively want to go and lift weights. What they want is the end result. They want the body that comes from being dedicated to going to the gym. And so trust me when I say that if you build a habit of going to the gym and you push through that shitty phase in the beginning, that you will find it easier. And more to the point, once you get past that point of finding it easier, you will actually start to enjoy it. You will look forward to going to the gym, and you will be pissed when you can't go to the gym for any reason. It will become so much of a habit to you that you don't want to miss it at all. And when you start seeing this progress, not only in the weights that you can lift, but then suddenly your arms start looking a little bit bigger, you start filling out your t-shirts, people start commenting and asking whether you've been to the gym. This is this like positive reinforcement cycle that will just keep you going. And so I find that like going to the gym is not an easy thing to do, but once you start going, it will just become easier with every single time that you go. And So how do we know it's too much? Well, I've also been there as well. I went a bit too far with this, and I was running 5 days a week, and I was doing somewhere between 5 and 10k, which may not be a lot for some of you. It might be a lot, I don't know, but it was a lot to me at the time. And this was like peak of summer as well, so I was sweating. I wasn't replacing my fluids, and I was also lifting 5 times a week as well, and I was pushing myself hard. And my body would give me signals that I needed to slow down. I needed to rest. And one of those signals for me was insomnia. I really could not get to sleep at night. And so I would wake up feeling exhausted and think, well, surely the solution to this is for me to work harder so that I tire myself out more so that I can sleep more. And I got into this cycle, and I ended up feeling really depressed. I was insomniac. I went to the doctors, and my testosterone levels have plummeted, but it was a direct result of working out too hard. And so you really have to listen to your body's signals. You'll know when you are challenging yourself, pushing yourself, but not pushing yourself over the edge. And so just be mindful of that. But nothing that I tell you, there's no specific signals for you to look out for. There's nothing that anyone can teach you from a book. You just have to go and experience this stuff and do it for yourself. And so to go full circle, the reminder for this video is that if you're trying to entertain these ideas of like these really complex notions of self-development, then just ask yourself if you are doing the basic things right. Because if you haven't got those things nailed down, then that is where you need to go back to. Forget everything else, go back to the beginning and build these cornerstone foundational habits that you build this empire on. For me, a massive benefit in my life has always been coaching, having someone to keep me accountable, having someone to help me when I face hurdles, to help me realize my own limiting beliefs, and to have someone that's like a third party that has my back, like my cheerleader, I guess. Coaching has been enormously helpful for me over the years. And if you're interested, if you've tried a lot of this stuff on your own in the past and it hasn't worked out, and you think that you may benefit from having someone else to have your back, to keep you accountable, to look after you essentially, and to make sure that you are staying on the path that you said you were going to stay on, and to deal with all those hurdles as they come up, then you can work directly with me, and you can find out more about that using the link in the description. But above all, I just hope this video was helpful to you. Just a reminder, if nothing else, like the reminder that I needed. So much of the content that I make is not, in a selfish way, it's not necessarily for you. It is for myself. And as a result of that, it is helpful to thousands of other people on the internet. And I'm incredibly grateful for that. So let me know what your thoughts were in the comments. I hope this video was helpful as always, and I will see you in the next one.